Did you ever have a heaviness on your heart that wouldn't go away? And you're confident that God cares and is listening, but you're just not sure you've made your case clear enough. Because after all, you know the urgency or the weight of your own trials, but maybe God hasn't done everything you wanted Him to do to alleviate your distress. This brief lesson is for you. We have some examples of long prayers in the Bible from people who were in distress. Hannah's prayer in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 12 is not provided in detail. The scripture merely says she was a long time in prayer before the Lord. Her problem was a persistent one, and it was deeply felt. She had plenty to say because in verse 16, she explained to Eli, "My words have come from my stored up sorrow and pain." And the Lord heard that prayer and miraculously answered it. So then, is it the long prayer that God hears and answers? Not at all. Luke chapter 20, verse 47, Jesus criticized the Pharisees who, in the eyes of men, make long prayers. And in Matthew chapter 6 and verse 7, Jesus instructed His disciples, "And in your prayer, do not make use of the same words again and again as the Gentiles do, for they have the idea that God will give attention to them because of the number of their words. So be not like them, because your Father has knowledge of your needs even before you make your request known to Him." So it's not in the length and it's not in the repetition. And yet Jesus encourages us to come before the throne repeatedly, even to make a nuisance of ourselves, like the annoyingly persistent widow before the unjust judge in Luke chapter 18, where the Lord told us, "Don't worry that you'll ask too often." And yet some of the most impactful prayers recorded, Old Testament and New, were some of the briefest and said only once as far as we know. David's prayer of confession of sin after he had unwisely taken a census, perhaps out of the pride of self-sufficiency in 2 Samuel chapter 24, verse 10. "Great has been my sin in doing this, but now, O Lord, be pleased to take away the sin of your servant, for I have done very foolishly." Or a similar prayer prayed by a contrite publican at the temple in Luke chapter 18, verse 13. "Lord, be merciful to me, a sinner." Jesus' prayer on the cross for His torturers in Luke chapter 23, verse 34. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Or Stephen's similar prayer in Acts chapter 7. "Lord, lay not this sin to their charge." Consider Moses praying for his sister when she was struck with leprosy. "Oh God, please heal her, please." What do all these prayers listed here have in common? They were all surprisingly brief, but they were all prayed from hearts of reverence, humility, and care both for others and for the will of God. They all come from the same deep poverty of spirit. When you have a heartfelt need, pray long if it helps. Pray again and again if you will. God is not going to be mad at you. But remember, God is not manipulated by long or repeated prayers. Instead, His heart is turned toward those whose hearts are turned toward Him, and His ears are open to their prayers, even if you can only muster a "Lord, be merciful."